Hello, West Ham Network. We are going to be taking a look today at our current first choice striker option. We've had a few, but this is our current first choice, Evan Ferguson, and we'll be asking the question, is he too much of a risk, or is now the perfect time to sign a young, talented striker that's perhaps just had a poor run of luck? So let's get started. Yes, West Ham Network. So it's Holly, and if you enjoy this video, please do take it a second just to give it a little thumbs up. Support the channel if you're new around here, subscribe and all of that jazz. Now, I want to get your opinions on this one, so get involved in that discussions down below in that comment section. All about Ferguson. I want to know your thoughts. So over the last couple of days, Evan Ferguson has emerged as our first choice striker option. And today we're going to be taking a look at what he could actually bring to West Ham, some of the pros, some of the cons, and where we currently stand. So as a bit of a background with Ferguson, he scored once in 14 appearances this season, and he's currently recovering from an ankle injury, which has seen him fall down the pecking order at Brighton. But it's thought that a permanent deal is not on the cards. However, this means that a loan move is potentially up for grabs for the 20-year-old that is actually regarded as one of the brightest young strikers in the Premier League, which obviously we want to bring our average age down in the squad. Could this be our option? So that's what we're going to be chatting about today. The 1 goal in 14 games stat doesn't sound very good, but it isn't actually as bad as it sounds because he'd only actually played 220 minutes of Premier League games, or an average of 15 minutes per game during that. So when you look at that and the fact that he scored, it's not as bad as it sounds that it's in 14 games. His ankle injury, as we know, we've reported a lot, it's been a big issue for him. He initially had an ankle injury at the start of the season. He played very short periods of time in most games. He played 5 minutes against us, actually in December, before then being out with ankle problems on December the 27th. Now, recently, Ferguson has been touted as going to some of the big clubs in Europe, including Chelsea, Arsenal, Man U, Spurs, and now Bayer Leverkusen are reportedly after his signature because they might need a new striker if former West Ham target Victor Boniface moves to Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia. Although, if the rumours of John Duran going to Al Nassr could happen, that will mean that it would put a stop to this and it would take Bayer Leverkusen out of the race for Evan Ferguson. So it's all a little bit of a merry-go-round as we enter the final stages of the January transfer window. A lot of hearsay, but all we can go off is what the reports are currently saying. So Bournemouth and Everton are the most likely links for Evan Ferguson in the Premier League, aside from ourselves. And realistically, we should be able to get a player like Ferguson over those clubs. But if Bayer Leverkusen come in for him, I think it could make it quite tricky because they've got Champions League football. They're also fighting for the title in Germany. So there's a lot of things they could offer. However, at West Ham, we do have one thing that none of them have: Graham Potter. So we've got the opportunity for Evan Ferguson to link back up with Graham Potter, who believed in him enough to give him his debut at Brighton. But the question is, how did Evan Ferguson even do under Potter? I'm here to answer that. So he gave Ferguson his debut against Cardiff in the Carabao Cup, 24th of August, 2021. In total, he made 5 appearances under him. He scored 1 goal and got 2 assists. And in these performances, he had very little time. They were few and far between, which isn't uncommon considering how young he would have been at the time, just 17, if my maths is mathing. But Potter did play Ferguson just before he left for Chelsea, so it wasn't like he'd fallen out of favour with him. And I'm sure Ferguson would have appreciated that Potter did take a little bit of a chance on him there. And then Ferguson played under De Zerbi from December 2022, where he got 0.9 goals and assists per 90 minutes under him, which is incredible. He got 16 goals and 5 assists in 34 games. So that's amazing for any Premier League striker, let alone somebody that was just 18 at the time. Now, looking at where we currently stand with Ferguson, excuse me, we can't not touch on the injury situation. So he appears to have some recurring ankle issues. He is young, so I'd like to think that it's not something that will absolutely plague him, but you never know, especially when someone's had a problem with the same area of the body multiple times. So he had an ankle injury in the 22-23 season. He missed 5 games. Then he had 4 games out with a knee injury, and then he had 13 games with an ankle injury between Brighton and the Republic of Ireland in 23-24. So he missed those games. And now he's been out for 7 games with ankle problems, and we're not quite sure how much longer he will be injured for. This is specifically listed differently as well to an ankle injury on Transfer Market, which I thought was really interesting. What is the difference between an ankle injury and an ankle problem? I don't have a clue, but there you go. He currently has an ankle problem, not an ankle injury. And then in 2023, there was also an article that went out which really highlighted Evan Ferguson as one of Europe's next top potential strikers. They spoke about how he'd stepped up into the Brighton senior team and the ways that he'd impressed. And it was actually just really interesting to see, I suppose, how he'd come through the ranks and the rise to the peak performance that he had at that moment in time. So his market value was just €600,000 in the 2021-22 season. And then it rose to 65 million just one season later. So over the course of a year, his market value increased tremendously, making him one of the players at the time with the biggest increases in market value. So what can we say about him and the way he plays? He might have dropped off a little bit since obviously he's had his injury, but he played well for Brighton. He has played in the Premier League. He's 6 foot tall. He is a powerful striker. He's got the strength to hold defenders off, and he's great in the box. He seems calm under pressure, I'd say. And I've seen videos where he's taken neat touches to bring the ball down and then he can finish after that. So he seems a pretty rounded player. He looks like he's got a good finish and he can also poach a goal. He gets in good positions and he makes defenders work hard, with a lot of his goals from being inside the box, some from outside the box. And at Brighton, it does look as though he got a decent amount of service to make this happen, but he can also get an assist and his hold-up play looks really impressive to me. And that's probably more important to me because the Antonio model of football that's worked well for us is that we can also have someone that isn't an out-and-out striker like a tap-in merchant, but instead somebody that can hold the ball up and bring other players into that attack. And that I think is really important because we have quite a few players that can be creative up top there. And if he can hold the ball up as well with his physicality and bring those players in, it means we've got a lot more options and ways to score. And I just think it makes us a lot more versatile. Interestingly, while a lot of his goals are from inside the box, he seems to drop really deep to actually bring the ball forwards. And then he likes to drive up the pitch and bring others into play. And this is something that we've not seen from the likes of Ings, or you don't see from a lot of strikers, to be honest. And I think that's almost the mixture that we need at West Ham at the moment, which is someone that will get involved with the dirty work and make it happen for other players as well, but also can be a clinical striker and can take chances and does just threaten their defence constantly. So I think in terms of that, it would be fantastic. The only concern I have is his injuries. If he doesn't get injured, then Ferguson would be an absolute bargain, I would say, that we brought in at the perfect time if we could buy him, or there was a loan with an option or an obligation. I think it would be a great time to make the most of a situation where he's been injured and he's been unfortunate. But the question I've got for you is Evan Ferguson someone that you'd like to see at West Ham? Let us know down below in the comment section. We know that it's notoriously hard to find good players in January, but one theory of why Brighton would be willing to let him out on loan or let him go is that with his market value going down, Brighton are playing João Pedro and Danny Welbeck over using him. So a little loan spell, if they're confident in his abilities, would get him match fit while helping to increase his market value and mean that he could go for more money or he could come back into the Brighton team. So even if it's a loan, I think this would still work well for us. I think it would work well for Brighton as well. So I don't think there's a downside for anybody. Obviously, we want him to stay if he's good, but it also takes the risk out of a player that we believe is injury prone, but that we believe could be talented and could make a difference for us. I prefer a loan with an option. A loan with an obligation would be okay, depending on the terms of that obligation. But I'm just a bit worried about the injury situation, which would be why I wouldn't want to commit long term, just in case we brought him in, paid a decent chunk of money, and then realised that this injury was something that was going to keep reappearing. And if you haven't already, you fancy getting your hopes up today, I would thoroughly recommend just ignoring that whole list of injuries. Don't look at that. Go onto YouTube and watch a highlights reel. Go on, live on the edge with me. It's actually quite exciting watching him play. Yeah, he just looks strong. He's 6 foot, so he's not an absolute giant, but he just looks powerful and he can barge players off the ball and just looks pretty much a well-rounded package, to be honest. So there we have it. My overview is that he's physical and he's pretty quick. He's got a good finish. He drops deep. He brings others into the attack. But let me know what you think about Evan Ferguson down below in that comment section. That's all from me for now, but tune in at 5 p.m. when I'm going to be running through your Hammers headlines for today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Until next time, come on, you Irons. Big end to the January transfer window that actually ends in February. Bye.